Hello and welcome to Gundog Nation. This is Kenneth DeWitt coming to you from Texas, and I want you to know that Gundog Nation is much more than a podcast. It's a movement to unite those who love to watch a well-trained dog do what it was bred to do. We are also here to encourage youth to get involved in the sport of gun dogs, whether it's hunting, sport, or competition. I want to build a community of people united to preserve our heritage of gun dog ownership and to be better gun dog owners. Stay tuned to each episode to learn more about training, dog health, wellness, and nutrition from expert trainers, breeders, and veterinarians. Be sure to go on our website, www.gundognation.net, and join our email list. You will receive newsletters from trainers and vets and breeders that will also help you being a better gun dog owner. And be sure to listen to some of our supporters, Mo Pitney, who is a very good country musician and bluegrass musician. He has a bluegrass project called Pitney Myers, and he's getting ready to come out with a new album on Curb Records, so stay tuned. Also, the music provided on our show is from Sean Brock, originally from Harlan, Kentucky, just across the mountain from me. He did all the music that you hear on our introduction and our outro for the show. Played all the instruments except for Scott Vessel on the banjo and Jerry Douglas on the dobro. Check them out. Thank you for listening. Hello, this is Kenneth Witt with Gundog Nation, and I'd like to encourage all you listeners and viewers on our YouTube channel to check out patreon.com/Gundog Nation. For $10 a month, you can become a member of our community, and we'll have access to lots of stuff. Mainly, we'll do a monthly forum, an open forum, where you can ask me anything gun dog related, and we'll learn from each other in the community. Should be a lot of fun each month. We will do that. So check it out, patreon.com/Gundog Nation. All right, welcome back to Gundog Nation. This is Kenneth Witt talking to you today from Midland, Texas. I've been trying to track this guy down. He's a busy man. I've been dying to go hunting at his outfitter there in Kansas, but it's a pleasure of mine to have Mr. Wade Skeen. Wade, tell all these listeners that don't know you who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name's Wade Skeen. I own Skeen Gundogs and Outfitters up in south central Kansas. And we do a lot of waterfowl hunting, some deer hunting, some turkey hunting, upland birds when we got them around. And then got a whole pile of our own dogs now. We used to train dogs for clients and kind of scaled back on that the last couple of years to focus on the hunting side of things a little more. But, that pretty much keeps us busy throughout the year. If it's not one of the seasons we're guiding for, we're probably out coyote hunting for fun.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting hooked in that too. I have to get you come down and take some off my ranch. Wade, everybody comes into this industry or this lifestyle. A lot of us come from different walks of life. What's your story? How'd you get into this?
I grew up in Mississippi until I was 17, and I did a lot of hunting growing up with my dad and my brother, mostly bow hunting deer, some turkey hunting, a little bit of waterfowl hunting. I had one really close friend that waterfowl hunted a lot and had an uncle that would take me out from time to time. My dad didn't waterfowl hunt. He had one of those instances where he had got a waders full of water when he was younger and swore he'd never do it again. And true to his nature, he stuck to his word. And so he didn't do any waterfowl hunting when I was growing up, but I really enjoyed it. But growing up in Mississippi, it was it wasn't as accessible as it is in a lot of places, either, having to use a well-equipped duck boat or being a bigger, waterfowl lease or something like that. It just wasn't really accessible. Then I joined the Air Force when I was 17 and got stationed in Louisiana for 8 years, and was really fortunate there. Had a lot of hunting on base and did some waterfowl hunting there. And then met my wife there, and then we decided right about the time she got pregnant with our first baby that she was ready to go see some different scenery because she was from Louisiana. So put in for orders and got stationed in Hawaii for 5 years. And had a little hunting hiatus there for a while. Hunting, there actually is hunting in Hawaii. I just didn't really realize it when I was getting ready to move there and put all my hunting stuff in storage before we went out there. But it just so happened that the unit that I worked for was, half Hawaii Air National Guard. So they were all local guys. And and several of them hunted and invited me hunting. And I've had a couple of them come out here and hunt with me since I've been in Kansas. And then, so that's considered an overseas assignment in the Air Force. So you could only be there for a set amount of time. So we were there for almost 5 years before we had to PCS. And when we were getting ready to PCS, it was what's called an out of cycle assignment. So I was able to kind of look at the personnel numbers for like my career field, my rank, and kind of see what options I had. And I put in for Scott Air Force Base in Illinois and Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska, and then McConnell Air Force Base here in Kansas. But looking at the personnel listing, I had a pretty good idea we were going to come here. I had never been to Kansas at that time. Lydia had never been to Kansas. I had a lot of friends stationed in Hawaii with me that had come from Kansas. And I knew that, the deer hunt was really good here, and really the waterfowl hunt was kind of a secret at that point. That was back in 2011, 12 time frame. And some people knew about it, but it wasn't nearly as well known as it is now, obviously. So, got orders here, got here in June of 2012. Met a really good friend here that did a lot of deer hunting, a lot of waterfowl hunting, was an area chairman for the local Ducks Unlimited chapter and stuff like that. And he kind of took me in and showed me the ropes as far as the local area around here. And we deer hunted, September, October, into November. And as November pushed on, he's like, that's when he asked me about duck hunting. And at that time, I don't think I had any of my duck hunting gear. Matter of fact, I don't even think I had a shotgun at that point, because I had my shotgun. I think I had sold mine when I moved to Hawaii, and I hadn't bought a new one yet. And so I went home to Mississippi sometime and actually borrowed my little brother's 870 and brought it back out here with me when I found out I could duck hunt out here. And he took me out. My buddy David took me out a couple times, and kind of introduced me to a whole different spectrum of waterfowl hunt, because out here on public land, you could throw a couple dozen or a dozen and a half decoys on your back and take a blind bag and a stool and a shotgun and just literally just walk half a mile out into the marsh. And you and your buddy could shoot a couple limits of mallards. And I had never experienced anything like that with that type of accessibility. And it wasn't guaranteed. You needed the weather and needed the migration to help and stuff like that. But just being able to repeatedly go out and just walk in on public ground and have those quality hunts was just really something I wasn't accustomed to.
Oh, man. So from that time period of being in Kansas, when did you start getting into dogs?
So I had labs growing up, and I mean, really, really enjoyed it. It's always kind of a dream to have a really good, waterfowl retriever. And I'd had a couple after I joined the Air Force, but with deployments and moving and stuff like that, I'd never had the time to really put into training one from start to finish. And that same guy I was telling you about, David, he had a really, really good black lab named Jolly that was, I think probably 5 years old at that point. And after hunting, with his dog, that really solidified, and just seeing how accessible the hunting was here, I knew I was going to waterfowl hunt quite a bit more at that point than what I expected to. And, I think his dog, he had puppies off of his dog 2 years after we moved here, I think, something like that. And we ended up getting a puppy from him, and that kind of started the process, and we started training. That would have been 2014 time frame. Mm-hmm. And really, really took that first dog to a very high level of proficiency. I never actually ran him in tests. but I did go out with some of the retriever, the HRC and the AKC clubs on training days when he was 2, 3, 4 years old, when we were training, finished gun dog work and stuff like that, and had the opportunity to run him with other HRCH and master hunter dogs and stuff like that. And he was very capable to do everything that he needed to do in that arena. Unfortunately, he was a very high-strung American line dog. And while his desire to retrieve was, about unparalleled, his steadiness and, ability to sit and relax for long periods of time, things like that, really, really struggled with him. And a lot of that was my fault early on as well, for just not understanding the things I needed to do as a trainer and a handler to manage those traits that were genetically passed down to him. But I made those traits worse instead of making them better. And a lot of that was just from being excited and rushing the process and stuff like that. Had I been more patient and knew what I know now, I likely could have had a better outcome in the long run in that scenario. But as with everybody, when you have that first dog, you're excited and you want to get them out there and put all that work and training to the test, and kind of probably made his genetic traits worse by mishandling on my part.
Been right there with you. It's easy to do when you start out. I'm still learning. I learn every day. So, Wade, when did you, after seeing that and maybe seeing some of these other dogs that may have had steadiness, when did you start saying, hey, or who helped you turn that around, or did you just do things differently on your own?
It was a combination, honestly. When Cornerstone came out, I was really interested in the process that they utilized to train their dogs. I had read books and used some YouTube videos and things like that in the past that were probably a little more heavy-handed than how I would say I train dogs nowadays. And when Cornerstone came out, I'd already hunted with some of the guys that were customers and involved in that and stuff like that, and really had a few different avenues of folks that I was talking to about dog training on a regular basis through Facebook. And so as time went on and saw how that process worked, I ended up at about the same time getting a British dog, and knew I wanted to, train differently, especially with the British dog. And that really changed my understanding of dog training, because British dogs, typically are gonna mature a little bit slower and are going to be a little bit more docile went through the training process. And of course, there's always exceptions to every rule, but just as a general rule, their adaptability to, especially to pressure, is going to be a lot different than a really high end field trial line American dog and stuff like that. So as I started training more British dogs and being around more British dogs, not only did that type of training work better for them, it also worked better for all dogs that I was working with myself. So kind of changing up the way that we looked at dog training, or I looked at dog training as a whole.
Hello, this is Kenneth Whitt with Gun Dog Nation. Many people quickly become frustrated and confused when training the retriever. Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy's online courses eliminate all the guesswork by giving you a proven training system that will help you train a dog that anyone would be proud to have in their blind. Learn where to start, what to do next, and what to do when problems arise. Visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com to learn how you can train your retriever. I have used this method myself. I have been through it a couple times with different dogs. I refer back to it lots of times when I'm trying to get dogs freshened back up for hunt test season. I highly recommend them. I have actually been a subscribed member of Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy since 2016. and I would suggest anyone use it. I highly recommend it. They have an app that you can get to on your phone. You can do it from your phone, your laptop. You can't get any more convenient than that. I've used it. It's proven and tried. And I know literally hundreds of people that have done the same thing that I've talked to. Visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com and learn how to train your own retriever. Just to chime in on that, Wade, what I found easy about Cornerstone for me is I've got to have organization because I'm kind of haphazard. I might train one thing one day, next day train something completely different. And what it helped me, and maybe it's my ADHD, is that it's a step by step, and you don't go on the next step till you kind of master that step. And that's what helped me more than anything. And there's lots of good material out there, and I've read everything I can get my hands on.
Oh, yeah.
But that's why Cornerstone was so easy for me to follow. And it kind of holds you accountable each day.
It simplifies it, especially with the 52 plus program. The original Gundog program was still organized, but it was not broken down daily like 52 plus is. And I mean, once they put that out, it was really the most comprehensive, no fault way to train a retriever that's really ever been done up to that point.
I agree. I say this all the time. I still refer to it all the time. I use it. I'm training some younger dogs right now, just myself. And Wade, at some point in your outdoor career, did you become a pro trainer?
I guess you would classify as that. People paid me to train their dogs, so yes. Even though I don't know the level that some people do it versus what I did, it's hard to say that when you look at guys that are, training dogs and running SRS and Grands and Master Nationals and stuff like that, where most of the stuff that we were doing was much more focused on hunting dogs and family companion type deal. Although we did go run HRC tests with our dogs and other dogs that we trained, but yeah, we did, I don't know, 3 years of that. So yeah, we did.
And Wade, did you, I was looking at your website, I like your website, by the way.
Thank you.
But, I know that you offer kinds of different types of hunting. We're going to get into that. But what really got my attention is I've kind of really gotten into upland hunting, and I see that you have that training and you offer upland hunts. Could you talk about that? Yeah.
I mean, so in our area here specifically, we do have pheasant, wild pheasant, but the numbers on those fluctuate so much that you can't reliably count on them year after year. But what we have gotten over the past probably 5-6 years, our quail population has kept growing every year to the point where you can go out and have some pretty high quality quail hunts. And I personally just use my retrievers for it. And I've kind of found out that, especially with the British dogs, they're slow and methodical a lot of times, and they like to hunt close, and they really make very good upland dogs because they do rely so much on their nose that it's a really natural fit for them, honestly. And our British labs have done well upland hunting for us.
Wade, I didn't really understand that, which I upland hunt with mine too. I've only done that for one season so far. But when I went over there and watched the field trial, now I kind of get it as to why they're such good upland hunters, because they do, they're not really big waterfowl hunters over there. At least that I saw, it was all upland in their trials.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a natural crossover from the way that they run most of their tests, where especially, they focused on the steadiness and things like that, which is an awesome part of their trials as well, as far as being quiet, being steady and all those things. But they do so much hunting for game and cover that using their nose and things like that on dry ground versus, the emphasis that we put on water hunting here. So the crossover to upland hunting for them here is really natural for them. It seems, for most of them that I've been around.
Now, wait, when you quail hunt with your labs, are they quartering and flushing?
Yeah. And obviously they're not pointing, they're quartering and flushing. But once you've hunted with them, just a little bit and got on birds, it's very, very easy to tell when they're on a fresh bird and on a fresh trail, as long as you can visibly see them where they are. So yeah, and it works out too, because we hunt a lot of cedar patches and cattail marshes and things like that. And if I had a pointer that was down in those cattails locked up on a bird, those things are head high. I wouldn't be able to even see it. Now, if you're running a GPS setup, where it notifies you when they stop or whatever, yes, you still certainly make it work. But I like having those flushers getting in there and busting through that, that thicker cover.
That makes sense. I already thought about that. Have you trained any pointers or setters?
Yeah, I have, more so on the obedient side of things. And one thing I've had several people do is bring me their pointers for help getting the pointers to retrieve. Because that was something that I worked with so much more frequently on the retrieving side. But I've had a couple of guys that have helped me out over the years that they were more pointer experienced, I would say, that did more of the one-on-one work with them when they got into their more advanced training. But 75% of your basic gun dog training crosses over whether you're talking about a pointer or a retriever anyway.
Points in the other breeds that are you training now, or is it your outfitting business just got you full time?
Pretty much, other than our own dogs.
Okay. You have to educate me a little bit, Wade. Tell me the seasons that you offer hunts up there. Like, when does it start for like this year? Are you booked up for this year?
No, we still have some availability for this season. We added a second lodge in last year and kind of later in the year, and so we basically doubled up our occupancy availability for lodging hunts, whereas we were doing before we had some non-lodging hunts available in there. But now that we've doubled up on our lodging numbers, we still have a few available dates left in there. But our season starts really early here, especially if you're talking about just Kansas in general. If you go the northern half of the state in Kansas, it doesn't break down geographically exactly like that. It's kind of catty-cornered the way it's drawn out. But the early zone in Kansas opens up like the first Saturday of October.
Okay.
If you're around Cheyenne Bottoms, most listeners are going to be familiar with that area. That area opens up early October. Realistically, it's probably too early. A lot of teal around at that point in time, and if you get some weather, you might see some gadwall or pintail or shovelers, or some of your smaller calendar migrators will push in, but typically you're not going to see any really significant numbers that early. Then if you come down to this part of the state where we're in a low plains late zone. We actually opened the Saturday before Halloween, so I think this year it's October 25th or something like that, which is really pretty early for us. And then we'll run from then until basically New Year's. And then we have a split in this zone from New Year's until about January 18th, 19th, 20th time frame, depending on where the weekend falls. But now if you go 10 miles east of us, you have the third zone, which is the southeast zone is what they call it here. And it opens a weekend later than our zone here, runs all the way through till January 5th or 6th, closes down for 5 days on a Monday through Friday, and then opens back up and runs through the rest of January. So utilizing all of our splits and our zones, we can duck hunt that entire time, by not having without having to drive too far anyway. So, but as far as our guiding goes, we only guide December and January. We used to guide waterfowl in November more. It's just too inconsistent to count on weather wise. We'll get some years where we'll have significant waterfowl numbers, in November. We might, get a good cold front around that Veterans Day time frame, and we'll have some really good hunts, but it's not consistent enough to count on it to have guys traveling here from across the country or something like that. So we just pushed it all back to basically starting after Thanksgiving and then just running through January, because we know we can usually count on the weather and the migration to be significant enough by that point, with a combination of specs and lesser Canadas and then our ducks as well. We feel like we can confidently provide quality hunts from that time on.
Do you feel like that Kansas is becoming the new hotbed for duck hunting, more so than Arkansas? Or is that still?
I think Kansas, Oklahoma. Oklahoma gets a lot of attention now, and for good reason. I mean, it's fantastic waterfowl in Oklahoma. Maybe parts of Nebraska, but definitely Kansas, and I think Oklahoma a little bit more so than Kansas. But I think that's more a proximity thing, because you talk about the guys in Arkansas or West Tennessee, North Mississippi, North Louisiana, places like that, they can get to Oklahoma pretty quick. So, it's just a proximity thing. I do see a lot of people pushing from Arkansas west. Obviously, there's several groups that hunt with us that have had leases or own properties in Arkansas or Northwest Mississippi or something like that, and they come out here now instead of staying in those leases there and stuff like that. They still have good hunts down there. They just aren't as regular as they used to be, and they would rather come up here and have a better chance at the consistency of good hunts during that part of the season.
Well, Wade, of course, just so you know, as we're talking, I'm I waterfowl hunt, but I'm honestly really not that experienced at it. I'm getting better. What do you think is causing the change in the areas?
In the migration patterns? The number one contributing factor to me is no-till farming, and modified seeds, because if you go back 20, 25 years ago, nobody was growing corn into Canada, because they weren't drought resistant enough. They weren't heat resistant enough. They weren't cold resistant enough. Well, with the production of seeds that are more tolerant, we're growing grain crops way further north than we used to. We're also growing grain crops way further west in a lot bigger numbers than we used to. And then the other concept of that is throughout the Central Plains, most of your farming is no-till. So if you go right here, anywhere in Kansas, especially, Nebraska is for the most part the same way, Oklahoma, the Dakotas. If you go out 1st of September, you're going to see corn that has been cut, and you will see them drilling wheat right on top of the corn without ever turning the dirt. And what that means is you've got significant amounts of waste grain left in the field, because that's the other thing. Nothing's landformed out here. So your combines are running over rougher ground, and your headers are moving up and down as they're harvesting. So that naturally knocks down more waste grain. So you get that waste grain laid on the ground, and then you come in right over the top of that and you drill wheat into it. And man, by December, you have the buffet set, because the geese especially when the weather's warmer, they hit that green grass and the wheat, but the ducks and the geese both. But when it gets cold, they want those carbohydrates from the corn or the milo, sometimes soybeans, depending on what's around and stuff like that. So you have all that they need dietary wise right there. And, you hear the conversation. And again, I'm from Mississippi. All my family is from the South, to include my in-laws. My wife is from Louisiana. I talk to a lot of waterfowlers in the South still. And people want to talk about, heated ponds or flooded corn or this or that or the other. And I'm not going to say nothing like that exists out there, but in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't even compare to the, billions and billions of bushels of waste grain corn just laying out in the fields across the Midwest. Now, contrast that to the Mississippi Delta. You go into the lower Mississippi Valley and go look at a field that had corn or soybeans or rice in it throughout the summer. Come November, that field has been drained, harvested, burned, sprayed, tilled over, and will look like it has never had a piece of vegetation grown in it in history. It will be as clean as you can possibly get it, because they harvest it, they clean it up. That way, as soon as it dries out enough, the next spring, they can immediately plant it. There's no food there. Why would the ducks go to where there's no food for them? And if you go to a place where, like Missouri, for example, where they have a lot of national refuges and state refuges that do plant a lot and flood a lot of crops and stuff like that in the Mississippi Flyway, you do still see a lot of birds. But unfortunately, they're sitting on those roosts, or on those refuges, and there's really nothing you can do about it as a hunter. And you get further down into the South and you go to some of these really big high-end duck clubs where they're planting and flooding agriculture. You still will have some ducks there. Now, it may not be like it was, 10, 15, 20 years ago on those clubs. But again, the overall landscape doesn't have the food there that it used to have, because the farming in the lower Mississippi Valley is so efficient now that it just doesn't leave anything there for the birds to eat. So naturally, they have adapted and changed their migration patterns to where the food is. And then there's hunting pressure. I mean, you can't go to Arkansas or Mississippi or Louisiana or Tennessee and throw a stick without hitting 6 duck hunters. And that's great. But any puddle that's got a duck on it in those states is going to have somebody hunting it. Whereas you come out to Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and even further west now, the acres versus population, that is way more disproportionate than it is in the South. So you just don't have nearly as much hunting pressure as you continue to go further west, and that lets the birds stay in an area a lot longer, between rivers, sand pits, quarries, hydroelectric dams. You're gonna have water still open no matter how cold it gets. We see the Missouri River and the Dakotas stay open into January or later. We've had stretches in this part of Kansas where it's gotten down to negative 20 degrees ambient, not wind chill, ambient. And we didn't get above freezing for a high for 3 weeks, with lows in the negatives or the single digits every day and highs in the single digit many days. And we still had open water, because either moving water, or you get these massive roosts of birds where you get 500,000 geese on something and they'll keep it open. So frozen water doesn't really impact the migration. Now, what will impact the migration is frozen food. And that's what we rely on more than anything now to see birds move. I'm not watching. I don't care what the temperature in North Dakota is. I want to see how much snow cover it gets, because you get 12, 24 inches of snow on their crops, those birds are going to move at that point.
Purina Pro Plan. Here at Gundog Nation, we use Purina Pro Plan for our dogs. We actually use the Sport Performance Edition, which is 30% protein and 20% fat, the beef and bison. It contains glucosamine, omega-3s for their joints. It also contains amino acids for muscles and antioxidants. And it also has probiotics. It's guaranteed to have live probiotics in each serving. There's no artificial colors or flavors. We see the difference in our dogs. We see the difference in their coat, their performance, their endurance, and also in recovery. Be sure to use Purina Pro Plan dog food. The reputation speaks for itself. There's a reason that Purina has been around for such a long time. We suggest that you use it, and we are so proud to be sponsored by Purina Dog Food. Wade, you've educated me more here in the last few minutes. But seriously, I mean, this is, I love it. I couldn't. I'm just sitting here absorbing all this. Man, what an education! I'm being very serious, man. Seriously, I've learned more about the migration pattern from you than anything I've read or listened to. Pretty good stuff. No, I went to Arkansas this year for the first time, hunt Stuttgart, and no offense to anyone, but I really wasn't impressed at all. Matter of fact, the weather was bad too. It rained and lightning the second day, and I hunted Louisiana. One day wasn't great. Second day we actually got a limit, but I was in between those hunts. I'm saying this for a reason. In between those hunts, I was supposed to go hunt with you, with my friends Keith and Josh and you, and I was dying to. I was just killed, man. I'd been going to hunt. I'd been driven on. I'd Sand Hill crane hunted too and loved it. I've just worn out. I've been to Arkansas, Louisiana, and I live in West Texas, like not Dallas, West Texas, like way out here. So
you got to drive a half a day to get to Dallas.
Dallas. I'm just getting warmed up. My car's just getting warm for the heat. But man, when I found out what you guys did, I was sick because y'all killed more ducks than I killed 3 states in one hunt. So anyway, I will be back to hunt with you.
When they were here, and really the last 2 seasons, we leaned real heavy on the geese because and we're lucky in that aspect here that we have options when it comes to waterfowl hunting. So if the ducks aren't here or the ducks aren't, doing what we need them to, we can flip flop over and goose hunt more. And most of the guys that come hunt with us want to hunt ducks over geese. I want to hunt ducks over geese personally. But I mean, if you get out on some of these lesser feeds where you got 20, 30, 40,000 lesser Canada geese and specks and snows mixed in on these massive dry field feeds, and you get, 3, 4, 5,000 of them tornadoing over the top of you, screaming and shooting 10, 12, 15 birds per volley, like it's as fun. Okay. It's almost as fun as duck hunting. Not quite, but it's real close. It's a lot of fun. And once guys get to experience that, they do, they're much more open to going out and doing that some more. But mallards are still our bread and butter. That's where, 90% of the ducks that we kill are mallards, whether it's on dry fields or cattle ponds, or my favorites is hunting the river. So, we really focus on that when we can, but the last 2 seasons, we've had some very irregular duck migrations. Last year especially was really tough. Year before last was tough. It got better in January. This past season, even though we had ducks in January, they got here right about New Year's. And that, again, the zone that most of them were in was in that split that I was telling you about. And they sat for 2 or 3 weeks in that zone, and they got real stale. Even though they weren't getting hunted, they knew where the roost was, and they knew where the feeds were and where they could go in between without getting shot. And so by the time it did open back up over there, we had a couple good days of hunting, and then, they really were in their pattern, and there just wasn't a lot you could do with them. But again, that's where we get to lean on the geese and make the best out of it when that happens.
Now, do you hunt or guide in other states?
We have guided in Oklahoma some. There's some years where the split falls in the southeast zone, and instead of being that 5 days, it'll actually be 12 days just because of the way the weekend falls on the calendar. So we do have guided northern Oklahoma because I mean we have properties that literally butt up to the state line of Oklahoma. And their split is so much earlier than ours that they're open all of January. So we have gone down there a little bit. I don't prefer to. Oklahoma is a very, very, very saturated environment when it comes to outfitters, and not to say that we don't have our fair share in Kansas, but it's even more so in Oklahoma. So it's very difficult to gain access and get on the birds and really competitive and things like that. So we just don't hunt during the split. We just let it be, and we'll go back to hunting when the ducks open back up, or we'll take a goose group out or something.
Now, do y'all have a crane season there?
We do. You have to go significantly west of or southwest, about an hour to an hour and a half from where I'm from or where I live. I do have a really good friend that guides crane hunts in just southwest of us. I personally don't do it. They're very inconsistent on their migration. So it's really hard to bank on when they're going to be there and when they're not. And it's just, for as far away as it is from me, I'd rather spend that time hanging out with my family and doing stuff like that before the meat of duck season gets here.
Yes. Yeah, and I guess I've hunted a couple of places, but I think once you get a taste of crane hunting around the Lubbock area, I can't imagine someplace being better.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it'd be hard to beat that because that's where so many of them are ending up for the duration of the winter time. I think the concentration there is probably, other than the reverse migration going back up north, it's probably about as concentrated there as you can find.
Do you also, do you breed dogs as well?
I have not. I got dogs with the intention of that. And changed my mind.
Funny. I'm exactly the same boat.
I'm never going to say never, and have some amazing dogs that would be good to do it with, but it's just, there's so much that goes into that. I feel like it's one of those things, if you're going to do it right, it's something that you have to dedicate and do continuously and get better and better and better at it over the years. And, when I first started training and owned British dogs, they were not very popular in the States yet. So you were kind of limited on where you could get really high end British dogs. You can get a good British dog from all 50 states now. So there's, if I need another dog, I'll just find one and go get another dog. and I know enough people that have them.
That puppy resin, I've had to do it a couple times on accident, and it's not my thing either. And I'm just like, I've got dogs that are probably breed worthy. Yeah, but I'm never going to be a breeder.
I'm the same way. And like I said, you and I kind of talked about this on the phone, another day, but we had a split in the road, and we had to make a decision. We could either be really, really good at outfitting or really, really good at gun dogs, but trying to, the old saying, the dog that chases two rabbits goes home hungry. We had to pick one or the other and really focus our energy on one or the other. And because the outfitting has so much growth potential and diversity here where we live, especially when you start talking about whitetail hunting, that was the route that we chose, because every year when we would stop training dogs to start guiding hunts, we would lose all the momentum that we had gained over the last 3, 4, 5, 6 months training dogs. And you very well know, when you're training a bunch of dogs and you have a bunch of dogs, that took away from my ability to market and book and do everything else that I needed to do on the outfitting side of things. So I just felt like we weren't going to be as good as we should be at either one if we kept doing both.
And Wade, that outfitting ain't no easy cakewalk, is it?
It has times where it's pretty tough.
Yeah. I've hunted a lot with a lot of guides, and I'm like, man, these guys earn their money, And,
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. Some days are better than others, but I mean, it's especially specifically for waterfowl. You got a very small window to make hay while the sun's shining, and so it's a lot of long days and rough conditions and things like that. But you know, the enjoyment of it makes it well worthwhile. In the end.
Wade, since you're a deer hunter, and you and I've talked about that before too, and I don't know if we've ever talked about shed hunting, but I got into that real heavy. It's actually I ended up accidentally getting into British labs was through shed hunting. But do you do that much since you're guiding and scouting for deer all the time?
No, me personally, I don't. Now, some of the guys do. I have never gotten into shed hunting, and it's not because I don't like it or I don't think anything's good about it. It's because I turkey hunt a whole lot. And so the early part of turkey season, when we're out there walking around in the woods, we're basically shed hunting at that point. Now later in turkey season, when the brush, all gets thick and stuff like that, it's hard to see anything, but we pick up a ton of sheds when we're out. And this is our everyday job. So we're out and about so much. I mean, we come across so many sheds. It's just on accident.
Do you have a lot of openings? I know this is a gun dog show, but do you have a lot of openings for deer season?
So, yes and no. Kansas is a draw state for deer tags, and it's also broken down into different units, and most of our ground is in units 13, 14, and 15. And we did exactly what I expected on the draw this year. We drew about 60 to 63% of our people that put in for it got drawn, and that's exactly where you want it to be. But the bulk of them got to unit 13 and 15, and I have very few hunters in unit 14. So I do have some availability in that one unit. Not a lot, just a few bow hunters and a couple of rifle hunters would be about it. But yeah, so if anybody's listening and they do want to come hunt Kansas for whitetails, it's a lottery process. You have to put in April, and then they typically draw the last week of May, first week of June. And if anybody's really, dead set on it, best thing to do is just give me a call and I'll walk you through the ins and outs of the draw process to up your odds as best as possible.
So you don't get an outfitter tag?
No, there is no transfer of whitetail tags in the state of Kansas outside of, there is one scenario where the governor gives away a small number of tags to nonprofit organizations that they can turn around and auction off as fundraisers. And when I say small, I mean 5 of them for the whole state, or something to that account. Landowners cannot transfer tags. Outfitters cannot transfer tags. You cannot get tags just because you lease ground up here. The only way that you can get tags guaranteed as a non-resident is if you own 80 acres or more, or you are, there's one more stipulation. I want to say it's called landowner tenant, but I think there's a different name for it. But basically you have significant financial interest in property up here from a beef cattle production standpoint, or say you manage a 5,000 acre farm up here that you are the farm manager on, but your residency is still in Texas. So you have that significant interest in the operation up here. So that's a gray area even where you can get the tag, but I think there's some justification you got to do with KDWP on that one. For everybody else non-resident, put in April, you select your priorities on your units, and then you'll get drawn. Now, you got a 60 to 70% chance of getting drawn without a
Really?
preference point.
Okay.
Now, if you put in, you don't draw, you'll automatically receive a preference point, and you're all but 100% guaranteed the next season.
Okay. Okay. So, and like I said, anybody that's interested, they can get up with you. Now, do you have, when you put in for the lottery system, do you have unit choices or is
Yeah,
it just, okay.
yeah. There's a drop down menu on the right side of the screen, and you have to prioritize your unit choices in there, and that's why I say specifically, just call me. That way, I can make sure you're putting in for the right ones, and so on and so forth. It's not really complicated once you know how it works, even
Okay.
though when you're learning about it, it feels kind of complicated at first.
I did not know that. I didn't know as much as I've deer hunted. I've never hunted in Kansas, but I did
It,
not know that.
it's always been a quote unquote draw system for non-residents since they opened it to non-residents. It hasn't always been open to non-residents.
Oh,
The
wow.
big change is if you go back to about 4 years ago or 5 years ago, that was the first year where we had more applicants than we had tags available. So used to, as a non-resident, we had more tags available, especially for archery, than we had people putting in for it. So last year, um, there were 22,700 non-resident tags available, and I think there were 32,000 applicants. So we were at about a 10,000 tag deficit right there. So again, that puts you about that 60% mark. Now more and more people are holding on to preference point now. So I think we're going to see that value in those continue to go up, but it's not expensive comparatively speaking. You have to buy a hunting license or have an active hunting license, and then you don't get charged for the tag if you don't get drawn. I think I may misquote this, but I think a deer tag's $375, and a hunting license $125. And if you buy your hunting license, you don't get drawn for a deer tag. Just come duck hunt with me. You already got your hunting license.
I see. Yeah. Well, there you go. No, I like it. I'm going to do that next year. I don't know, too late now.
Yeah. Just let me know, and I'll walk you through the process on it.
Now, have you ever used your dogs to track deer?
I have. I think I'm trying to think of when the last deer I killed. I grew up bow hunting day in, day out. And I don't hardly ever deer hunt anymore myself. The most I'll do is take my son out deer hunting. I shot a deer 3 years ago, and my oldest British lab, she sleeps on the back seat of my truck every single day. And so I shot a deer with a rifle because I was sitting out there waiting on birds to start flying on one of our leases, and I knew there were some big bucks in there, and I knew they were still kind of tail end of the rut. So I slipped in against the wind and did a little walk 50 yards, rattle, sit down for 5 minutes, walk 50 yards, rattle, sit down for 5 minutes, and sure enough, rattled in a 145 inch buck, but he was really, really old, big body deer. I shot him with a rifle, and he ran off. And so I went and got my lab out of the truck, and she did blood trail the deer, and she's blood trailed several deer for me, but no training whatsoever. She's very, very scent driven anyway. So she knows that's an odd smell, and that blood's an odd smell. And she's actually trailed a down turkey for me before.
No, Wade, what's the biggest buck you've killed or you've guided up there?
But me personally, 150 inch, 145, 150 inch deer. Nothing crazy. We had somebody kill 183 and 5/8 inch deer 2 years ago. We did have a deer shot last year that conservatively was 180 inches. Realistically, I would say it was pushing 200 inches, but we lost it with blood trail for about 1.75 miles before we lost the blood trail. And I don't know if that deer made it or died. I have a feeling it made it just because the area it was in. If somebody would have killed that deer or found that deer later, I think I probably would have heard about it. But of course, we didn't get any more pictures of it and this was during late rifle season. I wasn't even running that many cameras and corn after that anyway. So it very well could have still been around, and I just didn't get it. But here in about 2 weeks, I'm going to have cameras and a whole bunch of corn back out there, and we'll see if he pops back up.
Nice. So that was last year.
That was last season. Yep. Yeah. I'll send you videos and pictures of him. I mean, he was very, very consistent. And one of my, the first person, really the only person I let bow hunt him was one of my guides. And a part of that was because of the unit that he was in. But I wanted one of us to kill him because I was worried about him being shot and wounded. And so we had a lot of encounters with him, but just never was able to get a shot at him with a bow. But yeah, he's big deer. I think he's still out there though.
Hello, this is Kenneth Witt, and Gundog Nation is proud to have one of their sponsors as Retriever Training Supply, based in Alabama. Retriever Training Supply offers fast shipping on quality gear. Your dog will love it. Visit retrievertrainingsupply.com to purchase gear to help you train your retriever. Listen, they have some of the best leashes I've ever found. It's stuff's made in America. Their leashes are, and they source them locally. They have anything you want, fast, friendly service, fast shipping, just good people. Retriever Training Supply. You know, Wade, I've high shoulder shot a deer with a 30-06 and tracked it, actually jumped it up. It was down, bedded down, big blood path, and also had a lab that blood tracked. This is in Kentucky, where I'm originally from, and lost it, just like you said, lost the blood trail. Dog lost it, and my dust dog could track. I actually competed with her in blood tracking, and I had that deer on the camera. I've still got the picture with the wound up in his top high shoulder.
Yeah, so, I mean, you'll see that happen, especially on a high shot. And it was probably 250, maybe 300 yard shot too. I mean, it was a long shot, but he was shooting like a 7 mag, I think. Funny enough, he was from Kentucky. But
must be a Kentucky thing. Them high shoulder shots.
Yeah, too much burden. Kentucky woundage ain't as accurate as we like to think it is.
Yeah. And it was, it was user error, right? I mean, I could shoot. I was in the military like you, and yeah.
You may have been pretty windy that day. I don't even remember now. But yeah, like I said, I paid to have a dog come in. That is a friend of mine that is very, very qualified dog. That probably got us another half mile out of that blood trail before it just petered out. Like I said, I think the deer made it, but we'll see. We'll see if he shows back up.
Do you have openings this year, Wade, for duck hunting?
Yeah, we've got probably 2 dates in December and 2 dates in January, something like that.
Do you have a group minimum, or how do you do your hunts? If somebody wants to go sign up or come.
So really and truly, no, we don't have any group minimums on our duck hunts. Now, if you want your own party, you need to put a group together. We say 6, 4, 5, 6, somewhere in that range, up to 8 hunters in a group. And one thing that's pretty unique about us is we're much more open to people bringing their own dogs.
That's my next question.
Yeah. So we're one of the more flexible outfitters when it comes to people bringing their own dogs. And not only do we allow it, we encourage it because we know how much time and effort and money that people put into dog training. And, if you live in an area that you just don't have that good of waterfowl hunting, you do all that work and don't ever really get to see it in action. And it's disappointing to not have that, available. So we want people to bring their dogs out and it's usually a little bit of time spent on the phone ahead of time, just making sure we're on the same page as far as expectations with behavior and safety and things along those lines. But we very rarely run into any real significant issues when it comes to people bringing their own dog out.
You got to screen them some, right? I mean, there's two sides of it. I'm all about bringing my own dog, but you also don't want to have a dog that's going to ruin the hunt for everybody else.
Yeah, that's at the end of the day, that's the two considerations. Is everything going to stay safe? Because I can't have a dog that's running up and down the A-frame blinds, knocking guns over and stuff like that. Or flaring birds because it's yipping and barking and moving and everything else, ruining opportunities for the whole group. And then, so you got the courteous, the manners aspect of it, and then the safety aspect of it, is that dog going to break? Some hunts that's more important than others, but when we're out there field hunting, we're shooting those first couple shots are level across the bow on those, because we're just about always going to let birds get down in the decoys before we call the shot on birds that are still coming in. I don't want to take the risk of having a dog have an accident. And a lot of times that scenario where you're field hunting with those lesser Canadas, that's probably the scenario that most guys' dogs haven't seen before when it comes to that many birds and that loud and obnoxious and everything. So, I mean, I tie my dogs out. By the end of the season, my dogs break too, because I've been so busy I haven't been able to keep up with what they're doing on a hunt. So, I mean, no shame in tying a dog out. I would much rather put it on a quick leash and keep it safe and make sure it's going to make it back home than I would any sort of, embarrassment of tying my dog out.
Yes. Same. I've done that.
Yeah.
And yes. That's good to know, Wade. I mean, I showed up at a hunt. I got invited to go, and I have my dogs couldn't work either one of them. I was going to bring them both at the same time, but man, that's a killer, and you drive that far and you spend that money and you've trained, worked, and there's nothing. I mean, that's why we do it, right? I mean, we do it because we love working with a dog.
That's a big aspect of it for sure. And that's, we typically are going to have those conversations early on with guys that are bred. But I mean, we're to the point now where, I mean, I'm not going to say every single group somebody's bringing their own dog, but it's probably pretty close to it. I mean, we get a lot of them.
Well, Wade, seeing that you've guided so many duck hunts, you've duck hunted yourself a long time. If you had your choice for your job as a guide, a duck guide, if someone wanted to bring you a titled dog, what title would you want out of all field trial, master, national, grand? What title would Wade Skeens want at Skeen's Outfitters?
I mean,
SRS.
Honest to goodness, HRCH or grand dog. Oh man, I tend to lean towards the HRC or UKC side of things, especially when it comes to a dog that you're really pushing to be a solid hunting dog. And I've hunted with a ton of master dogs, and they're great. A lot of times the drive that you need to achieve high-end AKC titles will be hard to manage when that dog's having to sit still. And again, there's always exceptions. I've hunted with plenty of AKC title dogs that were great. But I have hunted with a decent amount of AKC dogs that really struggled with the steadiness side of it, because they can do some amazing things when they're retrieving, but they have a very big motor, and that very big motor a lot of times can make it a little more difficult for them to relax when it's time to be steady. And I've had plenty of dogs that were HRCH that were great and some that struggled as well. So, at the end of the day, it's such a combination between genetics and handling. And obviously good genetics are irreplaceable because you're putting the odds in your favor as best you can up front. But seen plenty of dogs with really good genetics that didn't turn out real well too. So you still get what you get in the end with it.
That's true. It's and that you can mess a good dog up by bad training. I know that for a
Oh,
fact.
100%.
Now you're still running British dogs only, correct? Okay. Have you owned any other hunting breeds since you've been an outfitter, like a Brittany, a Boykin, a Cocker, anything else?
Um, not long term. And I have I have a couple of guys that I've had that guided over the years that had German short hairs or um, wire hairs, drought some of those Brittany's. I think that'd be probably about all of them. And I'm not a big fan of people trying to utilize pointing dogs on the upland side. Um, they're bred to cover miles and miles of ground and do it from daylight to dark. And so, trying to get a dog that is built for something like that to sit still for hours on a dog stand in the duck blind. I mean, there's some that I'm sure can, but I've seen more of them that struggle with it than not. So, but yeah, now they're a lot of fun. Hunting quail and pheasants over a really good pointer is extremely fun. So,
Yes.
if you're that passionate about both of them, you just get your retriever and a pointing dog. Yeah,
Well, that's what I've done. I'm get a pointer, and
yeah.
and I've got retrievers.
I don't believe in the theory of there's one dog for everything. If you're really serious about it,
I know there's a lot of people disagree with us, but I agree with you about that. And I know there's a lot of good versatile dogs can do many things, but to me,
for sure,
I'm a purist too.
Yeah, I've seen. I would say if I had to pick a versatile dog, it would be on that wire hair, drought hard side of things. I think they probably do the best just in my experience of the dogs that I've personally seen with my own eyes. When it comes to that crossover from one to the other, they seem to be able to. You seem to be able to steady them a lot better, and they can just chill. I mean, a German short hair, good Lord. I mean, it is a ball of energy. And so trying to get that dog to sit still is not usually successful.
Well, and I'm like you, the few draughts I've seen some that's pretty daggone impressive.
Yeah, they are.
And I've picked brains away with these guys that have those and do those German tests, even here in the States. And what they do in those tests is just it's unbelievable that a dog can, I'll say this and I'll be quiet, but what really puzzled me or just shocked me, those draughts that go out and actually kill a varmint, fox, where they put them on.
That's
and
part
then
of the test.
Bring a bird back without hurting a feather. It's like, how do they do both? But I guess just like you said, years of genetics and breeding. But it's impressive, the ones I've seen.
Yeah, I've got the guy that helps that guides our upland hunts for us. He owns and is training and certifying and eventually hopefully breeding draughts. And the things that those dogs do, their ability to do the diverse types of hunting that they do is extremely impressive. Now you're never going to convince me that you're going to find a draught that's going to, on average outrun a retriever on blinds at 450 yards. But if versatility is the most important thing to you, they are a good candidate for that type of dog. So I like them.
Me too.
I put so much more value in the waterfowl side of things and the retriever side of things that it just makes sense for me to personally stick with retrievers.
Yes. And even diehard cocker guys will tell you, hey, if you want a real cold water retrieving dog, you still can't beat a lab. But it's because they're built for the cold, and they're built for it.
Well, and they're just so plentiful. The ability to pick through bloodlines to find what you need. Now, I have hunted with a few. Crap, I'm kind of brain farting. Boykins.
Yes.
I've hunted with a few Boykins. I like them a lot.
Yeah.
Even though they're more attitude and personality in that little ball of brown curl than they probably should be most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
but,
they got the juice.
If you're especially in the South, if you're a duck prime, purist, they're not bad little dogs, man. But I've seen them drag some big geese across a field or pasture too, but it wasn't natural.
Yeah. I've been really following cockers lately. I've got interest, and I just got one actually from England, from Ben Randall. And what they can do is amazing too. A little tiny dog, they'll retrieve a pheasant that it's bigger than them. You can't even hardly see them running with it. Yep. But again, it's like you said, Roy, with the Boykins, they got they're a ball of energy, and but the drive is off the charts.
They can be extremely hard-headed dogs. I've heard a lot of people compare them to Chesapeake Bay Retrievers mentality-wise, and there ain't a more hard-headed dog out there than a Chessie that I've ever been around.
Well, since you brought that up, I got a buddy over in North Carolina. He's a guide. He's a trainer. He's actually took a wire hair to the Grand.
Oh, nice.
But he's got a lab, a cocker, and a drop. And he trains dogs too professionally. But he charges $1,000 extra a month if you bring him a drop or a Chessie.
Yeah.
And that's on two dogs that's ever beat him. Those two. Yeah. A Boykin and a Chesapeake Bay Retriever.
The only hunting dog that I've ever gotten bit by was a Chessie. And I mean, this was my best friend hunting buddy's dog that I had helped him train since he was 7 or 8 weeks old. But he was up in the bed of the truck when we got back to the house, and we had thrown ducks out on the tailgate to separate them out, to take which ones we wanted to eat. And when I went to go grab for a couple of them ducks, he bit me on the hand, protecting those ducks. But I mean, that's what they were bred to do.
And I've been told, Wade, that's what they were bred to do. On the docks of the Chesapeake Bay and Maryland and all that area. Is that what you've been told?
I mean, that's a fact. They were meant to be protective of the market hunters' boats while they went inside the market to sell their kill for the day. The dogs were staying there to protect the boats. So they do have that aggressive streak in them, and it's part of the breed. Now, that same dog, when the metal met the meat and everything was frozen and it was negative 20 degrees wind chill outside, putting up with his crap was worth it then.
He'd go get it, I bet, wouldn't
he? Every time.
I see. I hardly ever go to a hunt test that I don't see at least one Chessie.
Yeah. A lot of people want to do something different.
Yeah.
And they're good dogs. But there's some genetic predisposition with them that people need to be aware of. I mean,
yeah.
So,
what I've been told about the cockers is, and this is everybody I've talked to so far has said two of the same things across the board. One, that they're extremely intelligent, maybe like border collie intelligent. And two, if you hurt their feelings, they'll hold a grudge for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's
so. I'm real cautious with mine right now, because I do protection dog work still, and we speak a different language, so I've got to really be conscientious of that with her because it's a female too, which can be softer. But yeah,
and I think you can say that about some, especially on the female side, British labs too. A lot of times, like you see, I mean, you see that softness where you got to kind of mind your P's and Q's when you come down on them. But the good thing is it doesn't take nearly as much correction for them to get the point too.
That's true. I've got a perfect example that I have a female fox red from England. I imported her myself, female, and I love this dog. She's got drive. You'd think she's American. Her drive, she'll retrieve through a brick wall, but you have to speak to her differently. You have, even if you're scolding her, you have to do it softly, because she'll shut out, just check out and say, "See you later, brother. I'm done for the day." I've seen that. So
I've seen that with multiple British dogs, especially females.
Way before we go, I always like to learn something new, and you've taught me a lot new today, so that's already been accomplished. But your duck hunting, your migration explanation was textbook. I think you should get a PhD for that.
Well, I'm lucky enough from doing Ducks Unlimited volunteering over the years that I've gotten to hang around with people that were a heck of a lot more educated and smarter about that subject than me. So I just listened when they were talking.
Well, it sunk in. So as a trainer, Wade, what's your number one piece of advice you would tell other trainers, maybe young kids coming into it, or people like me that still learning? What's your number one piece of advice working a dog?
Embrace the process of it. Don't worry about the outcome. Just judge each day on its own, and when you get to the end of the process, it's going to exceed your expectations anyway. So don't worry about what your dog's doing at 6 months old or 12 months old or 18 months old, or don't put those brackets on what your expectations are. Just find a good process, follow it day in and day out, and just judge each day individually.
Wade, I absolutely love what you just said. Matter of fact, man, he puts that on a dog training T-shirt. Embrace the process, because I'm a high type A++ guy, and I'm a running gun, and you really can't do that in dog training. So I have to really, give myself a check and realize that, hey, this dog ain't going to be a master dog in 2 months. I've got to, just like you said, I'm going to write that down, man. That's some deep advice. I love it.
That's learned through a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. I'm doing that. I'm hoping one of these days I hope to quit making mistakes, but I don't know if that'll ever happen. But embrace the process, man. I love that. Everybody listening needs to remember that statement, because that's worth volumes. Well, Wade, man, I know you're a busy man and you got so much going on. I'm going to try to get up there and hunt with you. I should have done that about 6 months ago. And then I was really sick when I saw the pictures. I was like, oh man, come on, don't rub it in. But
I think we just need to put a listeners group duck hunt together and just come up here.
Yeah, y'all reach out to me if you want to go up and hunt with Wade, and I'll go with you. So you said December, January, your months, right?
Yeah.
Okay, December, January.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And right. both of those are good. So
okay, I'm actually I'm gonna go to a Delta waterfowl thing this weekend down in South Texas, Port O'Connor, and two of my buddies that I actually duck hunt with will be there. I'll talk to them about us trying to get.
We'd love to get y'all up here.
All right. Well, Wade, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully this ain't the last time I have you on here.
I don't think so. Thank you, Mr. Ken.
You're welcome.
When you're getting ready to go on your next hunting trip, make sure you pack the most efficient and reliable ammunition on the market. Migra Ammunition brings you the most diverse loads on the market. Migra's patented stacked load technology is the epitome of efficiency. 2 shot sizes stacked together to create the most diverse and efficient line of shot shells in the industry. It doesn't matter what flyway, what state, or what the weather, the standard remains the same. At Migra, reliable loads that perform in any condition every single time. We're proud to have Migra Ammunition as a sponsor for Gundog Nation.